policy outcomes. On the international stage, Ghana continues to uphold principled positions on justice, reparations, and reforming global governance systems. Our recent initiative at the United Nations to recognize the transatlantic slave trade as a grave crime, as a gravest crime against humanity, demonstrates our commitment to historical justice and global accountability. Within our sub-region, Ghana remains dedicated to the principles of the Economic Community of West African States, regional integration, democratic governance, and peace and security. We continue to promote dialogue over confrontation and support collective efforts to tackle the challenges facing our sub-region. We also recognize the emergence of the Alliance of Sahelian States and the changing dynamics within our region. Ghana will continue to encourage constructive engagement, promote cooperation, and work to ensure that our sub-region remains stable and integrated. At the continental level, Ghana continues to be an active voice within the African Union, promoting the Agenda 2063 vision, advocating for peace and security, and strengthening Africa's influence in global affairs. Ladies and gentlemen, today's dialogue should not conclude here. We need to set up organized follow-up engagements, clear systems for monitoring issues raised, and ongoing collaboration across sectoral levels. So let me conclude by expressing my gratitude for your dedication to our dear nation, Ghana. Together, through honest dialogue and shared purpose, we can build a fairer, more inclusive, and prosperous nation. I thank you for your attention.
From the broad masses of our people under the Resetting Ghana tour, and it's a tour that will take him to all 16 regions of Ghana. So this is to give an indication that he is going beyond just meeting selected groups, and that he is prepared to open up his government for broader scrutiny. On that note, we would delve straight into a question and answer session. As I indicated, there are reps from 162 different civil society organizations, but in view of the time constraints, whereas we would have loved to hear everybody, we are constrained to limit the numbers. And so we will start with questions from 5 people, after which His Excellency would respond. And then we'll come back to take another round or 2. So please bear with us if the numbers are limited in light of the time constraints. So if you have a question, please put up your hand. I would invite you to make your submission, and then His Excellency will respond. Let's start with a lady. I saw a lady's hands up. Yes, so there's a lady in there. It's actually a gentleman. So His Excellency has issued a presidential fiat that we start with a lady, and therefore, yes. So because the lady is up.
Thank you
so
very
we'll
much.
give the lady the dispensation. Yes.
Thank
So
you
please
very
identify yourself, and then.
My name is Lamnatu Adam. I work at Songtaba. Songtaba is a women's rights advocacy organization in the north. And I bring you greetings from northern Ghana, and greetings from our alleged witches camp. Your Excellency, when you were speaking, I was listening attentively to see, because you know the time that the LGBTQ plus bill was introduced, it was the same time that the private members bill on the anti-witchcraft bill was also introduced. So I was like, okay, he's coming to it, he will mention it, but I didn't hear it. And I'm glad that I'm not just interfacing with you, the Minister for Gender is here, and I've mentioned it a number of times. I know there has been progress, it's becoming, you know, it's moving from the private members bill to what you are considering. I just want to have a feedback to the women when I go, that exactly when should we expect the passage of this bill? Because Parliament have already sort of given us their commitment. I think in the last 2 months we've met with the Human Rights Select Committee, and they are very interested in it. They are like, when the bill comes to Parliament, we are going to pass it. Until when should we like that, especially your final signature on it. Thank you very much.
I think Kofi Asare had his hand up from Edward. Yes.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, we are barely 4 years to the end of the SDG 4 finish line, where we have committed to ensure that all children of school-going age enroll and complete the full cycle of basic education. You inherited an out-of-school children population of 1 million. In the past 15 months, your government is yet to recruit new teachers. The finance minister has refused to grant financial clearance to recruit new teachers. There are about 30,000 empty primary school classrooms without a teacher. And in Zamsugu, 20% of primary schools are taught by just one teacher. In Tatale, it's 13%. Sir, when are you recruiting teachers? Thank you.
All right. I saw Kofi Capito's hand.
President, one of your biggest campaigns was the 24-hour economy. Within 24-hour economy, the basic thing is goods and service delivery. In terms of protecting the consumers, the CP has been advocating for the passage of the consumer bill for the longest time. I hear bills being passed, and every time I'm told that it will be passed. Before I can say, Jack, we are at the end of a 4-year or 8-year term. I just want to know from you, can you promise that by hopefully the end of the year, the consumer bill, which sits with my dear sister, Minister for Trade, will be something that will be passed so that consumers would really appreciate and enjoy when the 24-hour economy is in full session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dankanamo of Kopek now has the floor.
There's a mic there.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for the opportunity. I'm told I can lift it. Thank you. Your Excellency, one of the things that your government would be given credit for forever is cooling the economy, which is to say that the forex that used to trade so high, you brought it low. Fuel prices that were equally higher came low. Unfortunately, Iran, Israel, United States, far away from all of us, decided to do their own thing. Now it is biting globally. Some countries have decided to even do 4 working days instead of the 5 working days. Some have shut down universities. Ghana imports largely from Europe. The European countries are not getting the products that they would have wished from Asia. So eventually, we may also be hit. Not long ago, we took a field visit to Ghana Gas in Takoradi, some of the CSOs. We realized that the work you did earlier to build the Train 1, the Ghana Gas Processor Train 1, is what Ghana is still depending on even as of today. There are talks of getting the Train 2 done. I do believe that, Your Excellency, in light of what is prevailing within the Middle East, if some expedited action could be paid to the Train 2 so that we don't wake up to where we don't have enough gas to power the thermal plants. There's been conversations recently about taking off taxes, the 1 Ghana cedi that was introduced to buy gas for the power plants. I do believe that at this point, even the gas for Europe has become a problem. So we may get to a point where gas will no longer come. Your Excellency, 2 quick things: Ghana Gas and some little investment in Tema Oil Refinery, which I believe every Ghanaian is happy when we heard the news that it has come on stream. They are not able to do much if we don't invest there. So I'll be happy that your personal and urgent action is paid to these two projects so that the Ghanaian consumer can be safe. Thank you, Your Excellency.
To hear that we are big on gender parity this evening. So I would invite another lady from the third row to make a contribution or ask a question, after which we will come back.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Excellency, for inviting us. We would like to know when EI 144, which declassifies parts of Achimota Forest, will be repealed. This is something that we know you can do, because as our forests are being decimated, we need more forests and not less of them.
But I'll be grateful if you could identify yourself before.
I'm sorry?
Your name and the organization.
I'm sorry, my name is Awula Sewa from Eco-Conscious Citizens.
All right.
And then we are also concerned about the Joy Expose, where we saw that Chan funds were being licensed or taxed. And we are concerned that the DCE is still at post. So we'd like to know when DCEs, MCEs, high-ranking persons allegedly involved in illegal mining will be held accountable. And we are also concerned about NAMOS. They are doing a brilliant job, but they need to be properly resourced. The Forestry Commission needs bulletproof vests, because we know of 2 guards who have been shot. One is dead, the other one is in hospital. And then lastly, we're looking at our water. I'm sorry, our water. We need the test results to be published so that Ghanaians know what exactly we are drinking. It's not just the turbidity, it's also the heavy metals in the body. And the last thing, the Atronsu activists would like to know when the charges against them will be dropped. These are activists fighting to protect the environment, fighting to protect the only source of water, the Atronsu stream. And it's a travesty that they are being prosecuted, whilst persons named in Professor Frimpong Boateng's report and others are walking free. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Before His Excellency answers this set of questions, let me indicate that the number of opportunities he had is more of the exception than the rule. So please do not think that you will have same. We gave a special dispensation in order to, as it were, achieve some gender parity. 3 men had asked questions, and therefore if 2 women had also asked questions, then they should get more of the quota. Your Excellency, you may now answer these questions.
Thank you. That was a quadruple barrel question. But let me say that my knowledge of the witches' camp has been enhanced based on the work my wife did in the Gambaga witches camp when she was first lady in her first incarnation. It's a very difficult cultural issue, and the camps, we wondered why the camps were set up. But when you go deep, it is either death for the women or moving them out of the society. And so what she did as Lordina Foundation was to make life better for them in the society by providing them with what they need to be able to live a dignified existence. But I remember when Nana Oye was the Minister of Gender, we started the process of reintegrating the witches back into their society. It involved cultural issues, purification, pacifying some things, and educating them to know that, look, this, your wife isn't giving birth, it's not because of your grandmother who was eating her womb. You know, go seek medical care. There's medical care that can take, and in most cases you find that it's not even the woman, it's the man who's firing blank bullets, you know, and he'll be the first to go accuse some old lady about it, you know. And there are some medications you can take to increase your firepower, you know. So it's a very complex issue, but certainly the anti-witchcraft bill is important, and the Ministry of Women and Children is following it up. It was, if I remember correctly, it was passed, but the President didn't sign it. So it expired. And so it has to go back through Parliament. And I'm sure that whatever issues the former President had, I'll find out what those issues were with the anti-witchcraft bill, so that if there are genuine concerns that need to be tackled in order that we pass the bill, I think we should, because we've seen examples where, women have been targeted, old ladies. Remember the one that happened in Kafaba, in the East Gunja district. And if you watch the video, it was so distressing, the way they stripped the old woman and beat her until she died. Luckily, justice caught up with them, and those who perpetrated it are serving prison sentences. I think that we must pass the witchcraft bill, so the anti-witchcraft bill, so that people who do these things will be punished. When are we recruiting teachers? The Minister of Education has signed off for recruitment of teachers and health workers. And so all the Ministry of Education is preparing to open the portal so that we can start recruiting. Our problem is not only in the supply of teachers. Our problem is with the spread and distribution of teachers. There's an oversupply of teachers in many places. And like you said, there are places where one teacher teaches all the 6 classes because nobody wants to go to those areas. I'm sure many of us in our generation who came from Kandapa, like Susiachurensa Secondary School and all the villages, if teachers of those days refused to serve in the villages where we all came from and congregated in University of Ghana, I mean, people came from very remote villages, but it was dedicated teachers who went there to teach them, and they managed to come to university. Until we find a way of disaggregating the distribution of teachers, we'll continue to have a problem. And so I've directed that the recruitments we're going to start, the vacancies should be declared in the district. We won't do that centralized posting. The districts will advertise, and so you must advertise to the district. Accra is closed, Kumasi is closed, Takoradi is closed. And so if you want to work as a teacher, you must find a district where there are vacancies to go and work. Because if we continue this, I mean, everybody will continue to go into the urban areas, and there'll be no teachers in the rural areas. And so until we decentralize the recruitment, we'll continue to have this problem. So we're going to start with this batch of recruitment. We're going to declare the vacancies in the districts, and we would give the districts the quota to do the recruitments. And so if you are recruited at that district, you must work in that district. And so that's what we're doing. But the portal is going to be opened for recruitment for health workers. We have a huge backlog because in the past, when elections were coming, the portal was opened. And then after elections ended and the government had won, the portal was closed again for another 3 years. So there's a huge backlog from 2022, 2021 of teachers and health workers who have finished school, who are sitting at home. We're going to try and do a continuous recruitment based on the numbers and the vacancies so that we reduce the numbers who are currently at home. The 24-hour Economy Authority Bill has been passed, and I want to thank Guzi and his team who have worked on it. And so now we can begin the operationalization and implementation lawfully of the 24-hour Economy Initiative. We've, even before the passage of the bill, have taken some ad hoc measures in terms of the ports, in terms of passports, in terms of many government offices to allow them to work 24 hours. And so that ad hoc implementation initially is ongoing. And so now that the authority is in place, we're going to do the organogram, appoint the executives so that they can begin the implementation and supervision of the 24-hour economy policy. But with regards to the Consumer Rights Protection Bill, the Minister of Trade is here. Maybe later I'll let her talk about it. I don't know where it is currently, but it's good that Kofi has brought it up. I know you've been a lifelong advocate for consumer rights, and so we can work with you and the Minister to see how we advance this bill to Parliament and pass it. I want to thank Duncan for his issue about stability of fuel prices. things were sailing quite smoothly. And indeed, we're beginning to enjoy some of the lowest fuel prices in a long time. Unfortunately, they say, man proposes, God disposes. I don't know what came into the heads of Trump, Netanyahu, and all of them to start this war. But unfortunately, while the CD remains stable, if this had happened when the CD was at 17, we probably could not have been able to survive. But the good thing for us is that the CD remains stable, and so the push factor in the oil price buildup is not coming from the currency, because happily the currency is remaining stable. The push factor is coming from the price of crude oil and finished products. And so far, we've absorbed it. It's not affected us as much, but if this thing continues some more, then we'll have to take some decisive decisions. Some of the weapons we have is to look at the margins to try and cushion consumers, and then also look at the recently imposed 1 CD development levy to try and cushion consumers. But my hope is that sooner than later, this war will come to an end, and we'll see more stable fuel prices. But for now, government remains concerned because fuel prices move the transport sector. And the transport sector is the main driver of inflation. If fuel goes up, the cost of transporting food items goes up, and it affects the inflation in the food basket. And so I'm happy we have thinkers like Duncan and Co. We're all looking at what is going on and praying that the war comes to an end. But if it doesn't, what other methods can we use to cushion the fuel price so that we don't see an increase in inflation? With regards to, I'm not sure, even though as president I must know as much as possible, E114, I don't really know much about it, but she said it has to do with Achimota Forest. So if it has to do with Achimota Forest, I'm on the same page with you. It's the largest open green space in Accra. We have built everywhere. Accra is becoming a concrete jungle. And so as much as possible, we must protect the Achimota forest. I know there's a family that says it belongs to them. And occasionally they petition and ask that some part of it should be given to them. And in the past, those in charge of those issues, I would say somehow have been compromised. And so it's not been as transparent as possible. And so we've lost a part of it that was giving back. I know that the initial intent was in good faith because part of the forest was given for the construction of Fiesta Royal Hotel. Government did that. And so the family came and said, but this forest we gave to you is supposed to be a forest reserve. You gave part of it for the construction of a hotel, so you must compensate us by giving us part of it. But that whole thing spiraled into endless demands for more acquisition of forests. I don't want to mention anybody, but it has rated at a certain time where parts of the forest were even bequeathed to successors and all that, inheriting people as part of people's estates and all that. So I agree with you. Your CSO should work with us, with the Minister of Lands, and stop any more encroachment of the Achimota forest. Recently, there was a request that came, again, pushing for another concession of the forest, and the minister came to me and said, oh, there's this thing, forestry came, it had been processed before we came into office, and they had agreed that they would do this. I said, look, I don't want to hear about Achimota Forest. You shelve it. Nobody is giving any portion of Achimota Forest. So, but I'll engage my attention on what E114, Executive Instrument 144. I'll go and learn about it. I must admit I don't know much about it. There was this report about a district chief executive an assembly that was taxing champagne machines. We had it investigated, and apparently it was a practice not only in that district, But in all the gold mining districts, when we told them to increase their internally generated funds, one easy way to increase those funds was to tax small-scale gold mining. The mistake they made was they didn't differentiate legal small-scale mining from illegal small-scale mining. And it had existed before these DCEs came into office. And so anybody who brings a Shangfang machine into the district, whether it's for legal or illegal, they tax the machine. You're shaking your head. That's exactly the point. I'm saying that it was a carryover to these new DCAs. So they continued the practice in order to increase their internally generated funds to tax Shangfang machines. The presidency went into it. We had the special advisor on governmental affairs go into it. And we've given a strict directive that they are not supposed to tax Shangfang machines. Shangfang machines are illegal. And so they shouldn't tax Shangfang machines. They were even taxing excavators and all that, any excavator that enters. And so it defeats the purpose of the fight against illegal mining. And so we need to educate the district chief executives that even though you desire to increase internally generated revenue, you cannot increase internally generated revenue from illegal activity. Otherwise, then you can tax marijuana farmers and all of them. Exactly. So we've asked the Special Advisor on Governmental Affairs and the Ministry of Local Government to issue guidelines, but also bring them in for orientation on what internally generated revenue raising is. And so I think that the Joy expose was good. Apparently, when we investigated, it wasn't only that district. It was almost all the districts in the gold mining areas were doing the same thing. So we'd look at that. Resourcing NIMOS. This year, we are giving NIMOS 100 million Ghana cedis to continue their activity, and I've assured them that they should start with that. And if during the year we think that they need more money, at the mid-year review of the budget, we will allocate some more money to NIMOS. But I'm happy to inform you that there are some things they don't have. They lack equipment, especially for policing the water bodies. Sometimes you see them in canoes with outboard motors, and some of them, sometimes they have the local people paddling them to fight the menace on the river bodies. The Minister of Finance, who is also acting as the Minister of Defense, has approved a budget for them to bring in new patrol boats that are designed for patrolling rivers. The Ankobra like this is 120 kilometers long. And so you can imagine those fishermen's canoes, what distance they can cover in terms of patrolling the rivers. So they brought purpose-built boats that are able to travel far on riverine areas. And those are going to be procured and given to the police and the army, and they would work with NIMOS in terms of going further on the river bodies to ensure that all the Shangfang machines are destroyed. Any Shangfang machine, their directive is that any Shangfang machine they find, whether on the river or on land, they should destroy it. And so I get the videos every day, and I can share them with you. Every day they are burning and destroying Shangfang machines. But then also, we just realized that even as we were burning and destroying them, new components were coming for assembling Shangfang machines. Only recently, we busted several containers with the motors and the components for building Shangfang machines. So while we're destroying what is in the system, we must also make sure that the components that come to build the new ones are also not allowed in. And so we're giving strict instructions that all those components, they were not flagged at the time because they come knocked down. And so that motor can be used for other things. But then together, they take it and create the Shangfang machine. And so now we are more aware at the ports, and any such equipment that come would be dealt with. I'm not aware of the Atronso activists, but I hear they're being persecuted. I don't know if the Attorney General is here. And so maybe he might want to make a comment on it. But before that, testing of our water turbidity. The Water Resources Commission continues to test, but like she said, I think we should publish the water turbidity measures for all the streams and rivers, and it should be a constant thing so that we see whether it's improving or is getting worse. I agree with you. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Not just the turbidity, but to test for heavy metal. Thank you.
All right. I would request that in order for us to have an orderly interaction, we do not interject the president when he's speaking. You will have the opportunity to do so. So let me call on my brother in the resplendent Batakari. His hand has been up for quite some time to ask his question.
Thank you very much. I would like to take this opportunity to thank your government for putting in a lot of work in fighting galamsey. And every fair-minded person will testify to that. You have developed various interventions in fighting galamsey. But the area I'm coming from, as a religious leader, most of the problem that we are facing is boiled down to behavioral and attitudinal change. We need to change our behavior. So who would do that best than religious leaders? I did not see much work by involving religious leaders to help in helping government by producing some guide into that regard to support government to help curb the menace of galamsey, because galamsey need holistic approach so that each and every one responsibility, we can contribute our quota to make sure that at the end of the day, our water bodies are free. So I want to know the kind of effort government is doing in engaging religious leaders on that regard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the gentleman in the political suit, yes. Please identify yourself. And
Thank
then
you,
we
Mr.
can
President.
proceed.
My name is Benjamin Isia. I represent Center for Environmental Management and Sustainable Energy. This is just a top-up question on Duncan's statement on fuel prices. Mr. President, please, how difficult or easy will it be for us to integrate our petroleum upstream to our downstream? I mean, how easy will it be for TOR to refine our own product?
All right, thank you very much. That was a succinct question. Let me go back. I see a lady's hand. We are still big on gender parity. The lady in the spectacles, please. Identify yourself and ask your question.
Thank you. My name is Rosamond Dewena Matutonu. I'm from Global Action for Women Empowerment. Greetings from the Volta and Oti region. So we are talking about galamsey, and we know that Volta region is one of the virgin regions when it comes to galamsey. And it's an opportunity for us to actually invest in agriculture in those areas. So I would like to plead with the government or the president to increase resources to the agri departments for them to work, especially posting of extension officers, and then also the access to the farm inputs for our smallholder women farmers, especially because those are the people we work with. With the civil society organization, we can give them education or information or the knowledge, but we cannot get access to the farm inputs because of our donor restrictions. So we'll be very glad to have that. Thank you.
There's a gentleman in spectacles here, yes, in the African print here.
Okay, good evening. Please, my name is Rashid, President of the National Union of Ghana Students. Respectfully, Mr. President, there's been a recent increase in hostel prices when it goes to the various tertiary institutions. And then when you ask them, all they say is that, Ghana is a free market economy. Price of goods and services are determined by the interaction of demand and supply. Meaning, currently there are more students chasing fewer hostel facilities. And it looks like the developers rely on this to increase their prices. In run-up to the 2024 election, there was a promise that the government will partner with some of the institutions to build more hostels for the schools so that it can absorb some of the students as well. I want to know the stage of this promise and also how the government is also going to help the private developers in terms of maybe tax incentives or maybe giving them soft loans so that they can build more hostels for the students. And secondly, currently there's about 5,000 schools under trees when it goes to the pre-tertiary education, that is the primary schools and the junior high schools. The past 8 years, the government was able to eliminate less than 20 of these schools. Mr. President, respectfully, I want to know your plans for eliminating these 5,000 schools under trees in your administration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll pick the final question in this round. Let me give the opportunity to the gentleman in the African print in front here.
Thank you very much, Mr.
you.
President. Oh.
Yes, you have the microphone, yes. Oh, there are many African prints, but I mean specifically the one in the front row.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Rashid Issa, Vice President for Positive Transparency and Accountability Movement. Before everything, we want to appreciate you for your efforts in ensuring that your appointees are adhering to the code of conduct. I tell them that it's more like the headmaster and then his teachers, ensuring that they do well. On accountability, I would like to remind us again on the work of oral. There's been a lot of controversies recently on what we are doing with them. We would like to know if the Attorney General is failing on his mandate. Number two, I want to remind you of your best friend, Mahama Odeyeka. There's been recent issues regarding security recruitment. We saw a large or a vague number of space opened, and then people wrote aptitude tests and all that. We were disappointed by the results. However, we got some warm message from the presidency that it should be expanded. We would like to know, what form is the expansion going to take? Are the marking schemes going to be reviewed, or there's going to be another way? Because when I write an exam, and I know very well I have passed, but based on situations, the marking scheme I'm looking at is being increased to reduce the numbers. It affects me psychologically. If the House will permit me, I use the WASI as an example. When I write WASI and I know that I've passed, but the university has not got space to accommodate me, my mind is free. But if I know I have passed, and because there is no space, marking scheme is reduced from 50%, which is pass, to 70%. Is it not affecting us psychologically? How are we correcting this?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, Mr. President, you can answer this round of questions.
Thank you very much. Religious leaders, let me invite you to the fight against Galamsey. We need everybody on board. We need religious leaders. We need traditional leaders. Indeed, we need you more, than ever before. Not only in the fight against Galamsey, but in a lot of social deviance that is beginning to creep into our society. You are the moral conscience of our society. And so already you are preaching against these things. We know in your churches you use your pulpits to preach against Galamsey, to preach against drug trafficking and drug consumption, to preach against prostitution and all those things. And so if you need a formal invitation, I stand here today and invite all religious leaders. You are welcome to join us in the fight against Galamsey and go over and above, what you're already doing. There was a part of Duncan's question I didn't answer, which has come up with this one. Indeed, our current resilience is because we're consuming more gas than fuel. Since we came, if you know, with ENI, Sankofa, the guarantee that the World Bank gave the mega guarantee, was drawn down to zero. The finance minister has done his best and built back that guarantee to 500 million, exactly what the guarantee was. But aside from that, every gas that is consumed, he pays for it. And so because of that, ENI has increased the amount of gas they are giving us. Then also the Jubilee field, we've signed an MOU with them to invest another $2 billion to drill almost 30 new wells to increase the gas flow from the Jubilee field. Now, when that is done, the old gas plant at Otuabo cannot take all those volumes. And so, like Duncan said, we need a second gas train to accept the extra volumes from Jubilee. And I want to assure you that the processes are ongoing to set up a second gas train so that we can wean ourselves off liquid fuels, fossil fuels. When that is done, it means all our thermal plants will be running on gas. And if you imagine with this war that is taking place in Iran, already it's affecting different parts of the world because Qatar was one of the biggest exporters of liquid natural gas. And when the war between Russia and Ukraine took place and the gas pipelines to Europe were disrupted, Europe turned to look for other sources of gas. And Qatar was one of the biggest sources, and other Middle Eastern countries were part of the biggest source of gas. And so they transported by sea. So now that the Strait of Hormuz is blocked and Qatar and other countries are being bombed, it has led to a shortage of gas. But luckily, we have a security of gas because it's our own resource, and we are investing in expanding that resource. And so that is what has led to our safety in terms of what is happening. It's added to the resilience that we have. As we go further, we would be able to bring even more gas on stream, because by the time they finish drilling the wells to enhance the flow from the Jubilee field, and then ENI has also agreed to invest 1.5 billion. We're just, I think in the next week or two, we'll sign the MOU with them, and then they will drill some extra wells in the offshore Cape Trade Points area and bring in more gas. If we have more than enough gas, we can produce electricity with it and export it to Burkina Faso and all the other countries that need electricity. We started just before we left office in 2016 with a policy to refine our own crude oil. And indeed, we delivered the first parcel of crude oil to Tema Oil Refinery. Unfortunately, we left office. The crude oil stood for many months, and then the refinery went down, and then the oil was discounted and sold to some people in very intransparent conditions. We don't know who sold it, but it was discounted very much and sold. And since then, we haven't attempted to process our own gas. But I'm happy with what is happening at Tor. Tor is getting back on its feet gradually, and they have started processing some crude oil. And so I believe that in the near future, it should be possible for us, at least our product that we left, to give to Tor to process, because it will integrate and add value addition to our oil. Instead of selling it internationally, if we bring it, one parcel of crude oil, the amount of finished products that it can produce, feeding into our petroleum supply will give us more resilience when things like this happen. But for now, we're also encouraged by the fact that Dangote is producing finished product and is producing a lot of that product from crude oil sourced from Nigeria. And so even though he's increased his prices, we'll still have the opportunity to compare prices on the international market. And if it means, entering into some memorandum with him to bring finished petroleum products from Nigeria, I think that we should be able to do that. With regards to Volta region is one of the greenest and most vegetated regions in Ghana. And The blessing is that no gold or minerals have been found there. And I'm sure that our ancestors in Volta region are praying that gold will not suddenly appear somewhere in the region. But I mean, you go to the region and it's so serene, so beautiful. But it's not only serene and beautiful, it's also clean. And I want to commend the people of Volta region and their MCs. And you drive through Volta region, through villages, and you don't find plastic by the roadside. I don't know how they do it, but we must send all the other, people in Ghana to Volta region to go and learn. You won't find plastic littered by the roadside and all that, and even around the houses. Around the houses are very clean. I think that was the tradition we had. When we were growing up as little children, I remember that by 4 a.m., we, the boys, could sleep. This is gender prejudice, is not correct. We have to change that. I believe that they should wake all of us up, all the children, boys and girls. But they'll come and wake our sisters up. Get up, don't be lazy, come, let's go and sweep around the house. And our sisters will go with our mothers and sweep around the house and gather all the rubbish. And we sleep a bit till it's time to bath and go to school. And our communities were clean. Actually, it was because of the fear of Sama. Because if Sama came and you hadn't swept around your house or you had littered, they would summon you to court. We have sanitation courts and all that, but they don't seem to be working. And that's because the sub-metros are not working. And sanitation has become a very big issue. And apart from that, our country has urbanized very rapidly. Today, there are more people living in urban centers than in rural areas. And rural life is a bit more, the values are still there. But once you come to the urban centers, you lose you become anonymous. You are one of 8 million people in a city. And so you don't think that you have any traditional responsibilities to keep things clean. You drink sachet water and just throw the plastic outside, or the gutters. I mean, however you clean the gutters, people will throw rubbish into them again. We need intensified education for people to understand. But we must also inculcate it from the children from when they are young, so that they know what they should do and what they shouldn't do. When we were young, we had 1 hour every week, and we studied civics. They called it civics. And we had courtesy for boys and girls. It was a book. All of us were given free by the state. Every one of us had a free copy. And it shows you not to throw plastic in gutters. It shows you the things you should do or not do. I've spoken to the education minister to see how we can reintroduce in the curriculum civics so that we can teach our children from a young age the things that they can do and the things that they shouldn't do. I mean, there was a lot in there. It taught me before I got to secondary school how to eat with fork and knife, how not to belch when you are at the table, and not to talk when your mouth is full of food. I mean, all these things I've grown up with. So if you come to dinner with me, you're not going to find me belching at dinner and talking to you with my mouth full of food. So they say catch them young, and I think we need to continue to do that. We've done a lot with regards to schools and the trees, but the strategy we've come up with is Volta region. We have farmer service centers coming, and you're going to get your fair share of the farmer service centers. We have irrigation projects. We've identified one of the major things we have to do is to create all year round farming. What we do is when we depend on the rainfall, we farm for 6 months, 7 months in the year, and the rest of the year our parents are sitting or we are sitting without going farming. But if we create irrigation projects, then we can settle even young people on it so that you farm, you harvest, you farm, you harvest. That's how all countries that have food security have been able to do it. So we've targeted many irrigation projects in the Volta region, Apife and all of them, to rehabilitate the irrigation dams so that they can grow food all year round. But the private sector should get involved. Government cannot do it alone. Recently, I went to the Afram Plains, and what Kwame Wadako has done is beautiful. 7,000 hectares of land, and he's growing rice, and he's doing it scientifically. He's got a professor, a scientist, who develops his own seed for him, and he multiplies the seed, and he uses some and sells some to the farmers around him. And it's irrigation. So while he's harvesting this 200 acres, this one is getting ready. By the time he finishes this one, he's harvesting the next one. So it's a year-round operation. And I think that, a lot of our people who have resources can do the same. We're not born to be traders. Everybody thinks that it's only when you go to China, per capita, you understand? There are many other professions that we can look at. And so government cannot do it alone. Every day we call on government to do this, to do this. What if you go and see what he's done? If we get 20 of his farm in Ghana, we'll be self-sufficient in rice production. 20, only 20 of what Ewadakon has done. So Volta region is a key for those projects. We're also bringing the oil palm project. And Volta region is one of the targeted regions. We want to develop 100,000 hectares of oil palm. And so Volta region, we're going to acquire lands, and those who have lands will give them seedlings and give them extension advice on how to grow the oil palm. We want to be able to cover at least 50% of our imports in oil palm. Schools under trees. We are building 400 schools this year. We've provided allocation for it. We're also purchasing at least 1 million school desks and chairs to eliminate the problem of no furniture in our schools. And then that is at the government level. At the district level, we have asked every district every year, from the 80% of the common fund we send them, to build 2 new school blocks at the basic level. And so if you take 261 districts, 2 new school blocks per district is 522 new school blocks. And so over 4 years, we're going to build almost 3,000 school blocks. If you add what the Ministry of Education is going to do every year, we are targeting 400. Next year, we'll target 400. The following year, we'll target 400. I'm sure that by the time we get to 2028, we'll be able to cover as much as possible of the schools under trees. There's no reason why wholesale prices should go up, because inflation is coming down, interest rates are coming down. They normally say the price of cement has gone up. Meanwhile, I built the house 20 years ago, and you say price of cement has gone up. When did you buy cement to build that hostel again? But, it is a matter of demand and supply. And so what happens is government must come in and provide more housing on the campuses so that it reduces the demand in the private hostels. If we do that, it will force them to bring their prices down. And so we started with Legon. We signed an MOU in Singapore to build 10,000 hostel units, 10,000 beds, hostel starting with Legon. Now, if that is successful, we're going to go to other major universities, maybe not 10,000, but build quite a significant number so that more students can get accommodation on campus. And then the pressure will ease on the private hostels so that they'll be forced to come down with their prices. Code of conduct is before Parliament, but even before Parliament received the bill, we had started our own code of conduct. We published it, and at the time that we appointed our ministers, we gave them copies each. There was a ceremony in this very room where we launched the code of conduct and gave to the ministers and asked them to study it. But now we're going to legislate the code of conduct. That is the difference. The one that we gave to them was moral persuasion, but now it's going to be law. And so everything there in the code of conduct, Parliament is going to debate it, and everything in the code of conduct will be enforceable. And so that's the difference between the one we launched and the one that is currently before Parliament. And so we leave it to the best judgment of our representatives in Parliament to take the code through the processes, and when they have passed it and brought it as a law, I can assure you that I will assent to it as quickly as possible, and all of us will be bound by the provisions in there. With oral, again, the Minister of Justice would probably be able to, if we give it a few minutes after that, I've referred 2 things to him, he might probably just say a few things. But just to say, you see, if we were in an unconstitutional government and I had unlimited powers, all the people against whom allegations have made, I'd have arrested them, put them in a sawam, and asked them to prove that they are innocent. But when you have the rule of law, they are innocent until proven guilty. And so when they go to court and they are granted bail, and you see them sitting in a restaurant eating, why is this person sitting here? This person must be in jail. But until the court proves them guilty, I cannot stop them from going to a restaurant. I cannot stop them from having a party because they're on bail. But the processes, and that's why Professor Mills says, the wheel of justice grinds slowly, but they grind fine. And so we must, if we are true Democrats and we believe in our Constitution, we must have the patience to go through the process. Investigations take time. And I tell people, better to investigate properly and take a well-prepared case to court than to be moved by the pressures of the public and saying, we want to hurry and build a docket that you go and the judge throws out. And so the Minister of Justice is under pressure. But he must build the cases thoroughly so that when he goes to court, he can get a conviction. And so we all must have patience for the process. And so when we say oral, of course, we didn't deceive ourselves that as soon as we come, we'll arrest everybody and put them in prison. We knew that it would go through the process. But you have to investigate every single case. For instance, after we came, All Africa Games, Auditor General started an investigation into All Africa, an audit into All Africa Games. We have only recently got the audit report. And so now you can take the audit report and prepare either surcharges for wrongful use of money, or if you think there are criminal cases, you extract from there. You have to investigate, interrogate the people, build a docket before you go to the judge. And when you go to the judge, the person must have their day in court. They must have a legal representation. And you know, so many of you are lawyers. You know how it is. On every single point of the law, you will ask for the process to stop. And you appeal to the appeal court. And then the process mustn't go on. Then you appeal to the Supreme Court even when you lose. And then when the Supreme Court throws it out, you come back, you find another point of law, you appeal it up again and stop the process. I mean, you all know the tricks, those of you who are lawyers. And so it's something that as a nation, we need to make a decision. Either we throw away the 1992 Constitution and arrest everybody who has stolen our money and ask them to prove themselves innocent. If you are innocent, then we leave you. But as long as we agree that we will use a rule-based system and under the law, we must be patient to let the law take its course. The Minister of Justice is under extreme pressure. He's got at least 7, 8, 9 cases in the courts. And those are those he's prosecuting. And at the same time, he must keep an eye on the investigative process to keep building the dockets and bringing them. It takes time. And so I'll just appeal to the public that maybe even you might prosecute and the person is let off by the courts. The court will not find that they did anything wrong. and that they say the law lies in the bosom of the judge. And so we would do what we can to make sure that people are held accountable. But like I'm saying, it's not about those who should be held accountable for past crimes. It's also about those who breach the law now. And so if we see significant breaches of the law, we must take action and we must prevent those things from happening. Happily, the Chief Justice has opened new courts for the Auditor General's report. And so we're supposed to take the Auditor General's report and extract, from it, those who should be set charged will be set charged, those who should be tried for criminal enterprise will be charged. And so now that those courts are operational, the current audit reports we are looking through to see if there are any criminality in there. And then also the next audit report that will come would also be the same. The 2025 audit report will be the report of these guys sitting here, you people sitting here. And so you better check your ministries and make sure that everything is being done right, because the next Auditor General's report by now 2025 is being worked on. So you are going to be the next who are on the line, and you must make sure that you take cognizance of what is happening in your ministries with regards to expenditures and procurement and all that kind of thing. Security recruitment, the mark was set at 65, and of course the aptitude test 65%, and so it must have disqualified many people. And so what I said was that we must maintain the database of those who applied. It was not 500,000 as the media is saying. It was about 280,000. What happened was people put multiple applications for different services. So somebody applies for immigration, he applies for police, he applies for fire, he applies for prisons. So one person applied for 4. That accounted for the 500 and something. So when you say 500 and something people applied and didn't get, it wasn't 500 and something, it was 200 and something. Yeah? Now, the thing was set at 65%. And so it disqualified some people. But I've said that we're employing 10,000, for this year, for 2025. Actually, this was supposed to be 2025 recruitment. So what I've said is we should maintain the database for those who applied. If you took your 65% and you took some of them, there are the others there too who qualify. But just because they didn't get 65% doesn't mean that they don't qualify. And so let's use it as a rolling database for 40,000. We'll take 10,000 per year for 4 years. So 40,000 people can have the opportunity. And we probably will lower their qualification. But one of the points I make is, you see, the security services are interesting. It is not aptitude alone that is important. You need courage. You need other attributes other than just their mental acuity. If you send your recruits to, for want of a better place, let me say Boko, or let me not use only Boko, Nkwanta, or Sampa, or anywhere there are flashpoints and there's action, and there's an attack. Sometimes the 65% aptitude people will be the first to run. The 40% aptitude, because he's brave and courageous, might be the one who will stand and repel the attack. So aptitude doesn't carry that. It's not only aptitude. Because of digitalization now, we want a digital this thing, we want it to be transparent and things. But when the security says, when you come under fire, sometimes it's the 65% and above who will run first. So I'm saying let's find a way of combining not only the aptitude, but the other features, And so we must be able to see as many of them, see what their physical build is. You can tell, sometimes from psychological testing, what the person will do under fire and all that kind of thing. So it's a lesson for all of us. And like I said, we'll continue to take from that database so that we are able to absorb as many of them as possible. But I also think that in future, we should look at the fees they pay. You understand? To pay an unemployed, they still pay 200 cedis, and then you get in your mobile phone disqualified. I mean, it's a very painful thing. So let's look at the fees they pay, and I won't make any pronouncement on that, but it's something that we'll bring up to Cabinet and take a decision on. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. So we'll take the final round of 5 questions. Let me start with the gentleman here. Identify yourself as usual and then ask your question.
Thank you. My name is Nabi Philip. I work as the Executive Director for Ghana Development Communities Association in Tamale. Mr. President, congratulations on your victory at the recent UN conference. My question is on the District Assembly Common Fund and how it is received at the district level. Our work around the area has shown that there are some delays. But of course, in recent past, we have seen some improvement, especially in 2025. My question to you, Mr. President, is will you consider a sort of a timetable as to how the Common Fund will be sent to the assemblies so that they can have a structured plan to develop the MMDAs or to develop our local levels? Because we know that Ghana's development is hinged on decentralization. But the way the Common Fund gets to the assemblies, they are not able to plan to develop their local areas. And I want to know from the ongoing reform processes, especially with the constitutional review process, will you consider a timetable so that it will show that at this point in time they will get their common fund so they can plan properly to receive it for development? Thank you.
Thank you very much. The lady in front.
Thank you very much, His Excellency the President. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm raising issues on health. My name is Harriet Nuyama Ajiman. I work with St. Ghana. We are all getting concerned about the rising incidence of non-communicable diseases in our country. And I believe that that is also the reason why His Excellency established the Ghana Medical Trust Fund to address kidney challenges. But I'm raising an issue of prevention, because if we don't work on it to get the incidence to reduce, very soon we cannot sustain the trust fund. And I believe the minister has spoken extensively on it. The ministry is beginning to work on the food policy, and we are advocating for the policy to be expedited so that manufacturers are warned, or manufacturers are encouraged to put warning labels on their processed products, warning us about the nutrients of concern, high salt, high sugar, and high fat, so that consumers are well informed, and then we can eat healthy, so that we are all healthy and we do not put a lot of burden on the trust fund. And so I would be glad to hear from the minister what the processes are in terms of that policy and how soon we can get that policy out so that manufacturers can also be guided. Linked to that, I would like His Excellency to let us know when we would waive the taxes of family planning commodities that are stuck at our ports since 2024. We cannot talk about free maternal health policy if we are not talking about family planning, and therefore the need for that to be addressed. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
I saw Dr. Akwite's hand. So Dr. Akweti of IDEC has the floor.
Thank you very much. Please have been introduced, Your Excellency. Thank you for this opportunity. I'd like to talk about an important issue that I believe the government could resolve. And it has to do with the status of NGOs in Ghana. Is it under policy, law, funding, implementation? Since 1993, it's been very difficult to enact a law because there was a draconian law that wasn't accepted. And there have been a number of issues about it. But over the years, NGOs and government agencies, sector ministry, it used to be the social welfare, and I know that Madam Sawyer is working on the governance board, I understand, also relate to NGOs. But these things ought to be put out for us to engage, but also address the problems that has made it difficult for NGO government relations to be anchored and improved. Today, as we speak, we know that NGOs have been more dependent on donor funding than state funding. And it is a very scrupulous process. You can't embezzle funds and so on. Everything goes on there. There's a lot of lesson to be picked up from there. And for us to see the extent to which state support or working with NGOs would indeed strengthen accountability, would bring about the development we need, but also the ownership we claim. The dependency has been so much on donors. The donors now have a problem. It's not just what Trump has done in Iran, but it's also we see what the oil crisis is and their own challenges, not only with Ukraine and Russia, but also the challenges they are having dealing with America within NATO and all that. So we've gotten to a point where the donors who have been supporting this sector, important sector, have their own crisis. The question is, how would government handle that vacuum? It's a formidable group that could help turn things around. And I think the President, Mr. President himself knows a bit about it because we've had conversations on this in the past. So I'm appealing that we set up this board. I've heard that policy or governance board law is not enough to turn the situation around, but there is goodwill on both sides to bring this together, and I think it should be given the priority it deserves so that we'll be able to tap into the talents, the resources, and the competences there to change the situation that is facing us. I hope this will lead to us having conversations on the details. Thank you very much.
I'm inclined to give the floor to another lady. So there's a lady in headgear behind. Yes. Okay. His Excellency has also stated that the next question should go to a lady. So we are very big on gender parity today.
Thank you very
much.
much. Yeah. Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Widat Saibu. I work for School for Life. Mr. President, as an organization that has been championing the out-of-school children situation, providing complementary education to help deal with the problem of out-of-school children, we would like to know what your government strategy is in dealing with the over 1.2 million out-of-school children in Ghana. And earlier, in your response to Kofi Asari's question on teacher deployment or teacher recruitment, you alluded to some of the challenges of rural education. We will also be interested in knowing whether or not your government has a strategic framework in place to dealing with the numerous challenges that rural education is currently facing. Thank you.
All right. So there's a gentleman with a microphone already. After him, we'll take the lady in glasses behind.
Okay. Thank you very much. My name is Dramani Selom Dramado, a member of Arise Ghana. Mr. President, greetings from Arise Ghana to you on your successful journey to the UN. You have done something that is consistent with your nature as a history-making political figure. That is something nature has endowed on you, and you have displayed it there. And then to your hard-working Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Okujeto for that feat. It is something that Arise Ghana has welcomed, and we'll actually associate ourselves with the government, so we do education on what reparation is and what the reparative justice is, what Ghana is seeking or what Africa is seeking. We are ever ready to partner government in knowing that. Mr. President, you said that the Attorney General is overwhelmed. Indeed, the Attorney General must be overwhelmed, because your administration, you actually inherited a kleptocratic regime, a very corrupt regime. His Excellency, I am saying that you actually inherited kleptocracy and kakistocracy. So if your Attorney General is overwhelmed, he will definitely be overwhelmed. I suggest that, given the relentless pressure on him, the 24-hour economy should kick into that office, so that there will be 3 shifts, and the courts now must be running shifts. Because if Aura fails, it will spell doom for our democratic stability. Because a lot of Ghanaians actually had hope in Aura, and we still have. If Aura fails, definitely people will lose hope and confidence in our democracy. Mr. President, this question goes directly to you. What is the status of the extradition of Mr. Kenufuriata to Ghana? Because if Mr. Kenufuriata fails to come back to Ghana, it will definitely not bode well for our democracy. So we'd like to know, what is the status of the extradition order? Thank you very much, Mr. President.
So the lady in the glasses with the braids.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for the opportunity. My name is Eunice Agbenyaji. I work with Star Ghana Foundation. My observation is on the constitutional review process. And I want to start off by saying that we respect you for honoring your commitment to commission for the 3rd time the constitutional review. We are concerned about delays in moving forward from review to reforms. But we acknowledge the government's commitment in your opening remarks, indicating the timelines for the implementation of the reforms. You did talk about the constitution of the implementation committee and introduction of some of the recommendations to a parliament. We saw that the publication of the summary reports in December 2025 did help with mitigating the risk of misinformation around the reforms. And we are suggesting that the full report is published as well, as we organize ourselves to educate the public and take them along this journey. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So this is where we'll draw down the curtains on questioning. His Excellency the President will field the 5 questions that have been asked so far, and then we'll call it a day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let me start with the District Assembly's Common Fund. This government has been very prompt in releasing the Common Fund. If you ask the members of Parliament here, they will attest. What we've done is we release the Common Fund before the end of the next quarter. And so the first quarter's Assembly Fund, District Assembly's Common Fund would be released by the end of the quarter. And so currently the Common Fund for 2025 has been released. It's been paid for completely. What is in arrears is the first quarter, but it will be paid by the end of March, which is the end of the second quarter, because then you would have calculated how much is due to the Assembly's Common Fund. And as you are aware, 80% is a standing policy that 80% must go to the district assemblies. In the past, as little as 42% was going to the assemblies. The rest was kept in Accra, and it was being spent from the center. And so you are in the district, and they call you to come and take dustbins that have been purchased for you. Meanwhile, dustbins are not your priority. You'll be called to come and pick up tricycles and brooms, which are not your priority. Or you could even procure those things locally. So we're saying send the money to the districts, let them decide how they want to use the money themselves. We've given them guidelines. We say, we're sending you 80%, at least build 2 schools at the basic level to remove schools under trees. Build 2 CHIPS compounds to provide more health care for your people. And build 1 24-hour market. But the 24-hour market is just one for the 4 years. And so it's not like every year they're building a 24-hour market. And so I think that if you actually go to the districts, you find that there's more developments coming. Indeed, some of the districts have the money sitting in their accounts. They're finding it difficult to disburse the money because the procurement processes are now kicking in to begin disbursements. So that's with the District Assemblies for Common Fund. Non-communicable diseases are accounting for nearly 45% of morbidity in our country. It means that the not yet the majority, but it is the largest component of morbidity in our country, higher than malaria, HIV/AIDS, and all other, morbidity factors. That is what made us introduce the Ghana Medical Trust Fund. But more than curative, diagnosis and cure, like she said, we must look at preventive. And so part of the remit of the Ghana Medical Trust Fund is both helping with diagnosis, but also helping with cure, because the treatment of these non-communicable diseases are very expensive. And then added to that remit, the Ghana Medical Trust Fund would have an IEC component, that is information, education, and communication component, that alerts Ghanaians to the triggers that cause these non-communicable diseases. And so we need to inform and educate our people about non-communicable diseases. But I think that the actual preventive is going to come with the free primary health care. Because the pre-primary health care has a very strong preventive component. We have 6,000 electoral areas in Ghana. In every electoral area, we're going to have volunteers who receive a stipend for going around household to household, and we'll give them the basic instruments to test. So for instance, just blood pressure. There are many people in Ghana walking around who have hypertension and don't know it because they've never ever gone for a medical test. So the next thing you know, the person falls down, has a stroke, or has a massive heart attack and dies. And then some old woman in the village is blamed for it. It was just high blood pressure, you didn't check. And so all of us must have medical tests regularly if we can afford it. But the preventive health care would have somebody knocking on your door under the free primary health care, come into the household, and everybody would line up and will check their blood pressure. They would have the glucometer for measuring blood sugar and all that, so that people who are predisposed to these illnesses, we can catch them early and help them prevent, the consequences of these things. The issue of renal failure, that's kidney failure, is caused by many things. One is lifestyle. If you are not active, you are obese, you sit at home, you just eat and eat and eat, you are liable to non-communicable diseases, including renal failure. One major cause of renal failure is high blood pressure. High blood pressure is one of the major causes. It destroys the kidneys because the pressure of the blood that has to flow through the kidneys for them to function destroys the capillaries in the kidney. This one, pocket doctor, oh, I beg you. Don't go and report me to G-Tech. It destroys the capillaries, and so it affects the functioning of the kidney. And then the third disposing factor is poisoning. And you can get poison from different sources. Not that somebody put poison in your drink, but alcohol and other things poison the system and affect the kidneys. And especially now where the men, all kinds of aphrodisiacs, I won't name any brand, but they know the brands. And you think that you need extra performance, and you go and take all kinds of concoctions. All of them affect the kidney. And so we need to educate people about those things. So Mahama Care or Ghana Medical Trust Fund will have an education component, and then the free primary health care will do preventive care, testing households, testing people in households to see if you are liable to, if your sugar is borderline, you will be advised on what diets to take to reduce your sugar. I mean, if you are eating big banku at night before going to sleep, you'll be advised, you know, to reduce the size of the banku or the fufu or the tuonzafi or something. And so those are all some of the things. And then people will be encouraged to do more physical activity. In our communities, they should set up Keep Fit clubs and then do exercises, you know, twice, thrice a week so that they remain active. Tax on family planning items, Minister of Health and Minister of Finance, if you look at it, yeah, I wasn't aware of the tax. There was a time I heard about condom tax, but I thought that was in the past. I'm not aware that these taxes still exist. So Minister of Health and Minister of Finance, let's take a look at it. With regards to status of NGOs, it's been a very dicey topic. In the past, there's been an attempt to regulate NGOs, but you know, once regulation comes in, and with the kind of politics we have, sometimes NGOs that are a thorn in government's flesh are targeted. And so we're not in a hurry to regulate NGOs. I think that the NGOs themselves should come with what they think government should do to put in regulation. But we won't impose any regulation on NGOs, even though there are some fly-by-night NGOs. There are people who set up NGOs. They register with Registrar General. They register with Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection. They go get some European NGOs. They get some humanitarian assistance from them. They bring it in duty-free. Instead of distributing it duty-free, it ends up on the market. They sell and make a profit out of it. There are many examples we've seen of that. And so even though the majority of NGOs are doing a good job, sometimes you need to look at things like that. But I do think, and I agree with Dr. Bright Akwete, when he says that sometimes NGOs are better at some deliverables than government is. I mean, I've seen many NGOs in the water sector that are efficient at distributing, providing clean drinking water. And so I don't see anything wrong with a district assembly or the Ministry of Works and Housing having an allocation and saying that, look, this NGO, we're going to give you this money to provide water for these number of communities. I don't see anything wrong with it. They'll do it more efficiently than government can do it. And I've seen government drill boreholes. As soon as we drill it, we put the pipe there. That's it. We don't go back to monitor and evaluate what is happening, you know, whether the beneficiaries are actually getting the true value for what money we put in there. So I don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, if we can find a way of sometime outsourcing some of these services to reputable NGOs that have the track record for delivering in various sectors, sometimes in healthcare and other places, I believe that we should consider that, especially considering that international humanitarian assistance is declining. There are less and less, and that's why we came with the Accra Reset to consider how we can pull ourselves up by our own bootstraps. If we can spend our money more efficiently, using our NGOs that exist that have achieved that capacity, I think it's something in the right direction. And so with regulation, I think you guys yourself, if you come and bring your regulation and say, this is how we've agreed on, the government will be willing to go with it. But I mean, we have no intention currently to bring any regulation of NGOs. If they indulge in criminality, of course, the law will come after them. And so, complementary education, I was a bit surprised to know that the figure of out-of-school children had gone up, because I remember when Nana was Minister of Education, we had covered quite a lot of out-of-school children, especially in the cattle herding communities and other places. We had people under complementary basic education who used to go out in the evenings and bring these children into classes and teach them. I haven't followed what is happening, but I hear the figure is up to 1.2 million. So it means out-of-school pupils. It means that we need to tighten and increase our efforts in bringing education to these children. And so we'll do a follow-up from the Education Ministry and then see what their current status is with complementary basic education, so that if we have to apply more funding and resources, we will do so. Thank you very much on the transatlantic slave trade. It was a victory not for only Ghana, but it was for the whole of Africa and the African diaspora, and actually people of good conscience across the whole world. A few of our people, I don't know whether for attention or popularity, criticized the achievement and tried to belittle it. And they made all kinds of infantile arguments. They say, so, but Africans were involved. I mean, it doesn't, the crime was systematic. The ships that carried the slaves were insured by reputable insurance companies that are some of the richest in the world today and profited from the slave trade. The ship owners made money. Reparations, and listen to the important one, reparations were paid to slave owners for letting the slaves go. When they abolished slave trade and said the slaves could go, they compensated the person who has enslaved somebody for loss of property. As recently as 2015, compensation was paid to people for losing their slaves. And you come and tell me that we recognize this as a grievous crime, and you say, oh, but Africans were involved. This was a whole system. They built ships, and they built the ships with measurements to make sure that the cargo can take the maximum amount of slaves. And you tell me that, Africans were involved, so we shouldn't talk about reparations. I don't know. I mean, some people just, want to whittle down what happened. If you know what happened to the slaves, nothing compares to it in everything that has happened in this world, to the 15 million people who were sent away, those who died. I'll give you the case of one example. A ship captain threw 134 slaves overboard to go and claim insurance because the cargo, your ancestors were cargo. And so if the ship lost cargo, there was insurance that compensated for the loss of cargo. And 134 slaves, he threw them overboard and went and filed an insurance claim for loss of cargo. And before now, the arguments have been fragmented. A few people have acknowledged. I know some of the leading corporates have come and apologized for their role in this, but the whole discussion has been fragmented. And so our purpose was to put it on record, the true story of the slave trade. If even to just let the spirit of our ancestors rest, I am happy that we went. I'm happy that we went to the General Assembly and it is recorded for eternity in the records that this happened. It will never be forgotten. Those who seek to erase their memory have failed. Their memory is in the records of the highest platform, global platform that we have. And so let's not trivialize it and say, oh, but there were people involved. In the record of the Holocaust, there were Jews who were prison guards. There were Jews who pointed out where other Jews were hiding. And yet the Holocaust is recognized as genocide and a crime against humanity. So why not the slave trade? Because some Africans were involved. It doesn't absolve those who built the system and financed it. And so we'll call them out. I don't care what anybody says, we'll call them out. And so Ghana has done its bit. Ghana has been recognized for leading the Pan-Africanist struggle. And I think this is just an extension of that leadership. Now that we have it on record, the same coalition that came together to do this, including our CARICOM brothers and sisters, they have a 10-point plan on reparations. I think that we should build a coalition around their 10-point plan for reparative justice and restitution. And it goes beyond just reparations. It includes artifacts that were stolen. Only recently, the head of one of our chiefs has been returned. It is in 37, being preserved in 37. They cut off his head and took it and put it in a museum for many years. It has only recently come back. And so it's a broader discussion than those who seek to trivialize it. And we will continue to lead if our leadership is needed, but we'll continue to be a good part of that coalition that continues to press for reparative justice and restitution. And just the last two, about the Attorney General being overwhelmed, and that he must be overwhelmed. Recently, we've been discussing outsourcing some of the docket building. I remember when I came into the presidency in this second incarnation, I said the whole of Ghana was a crime scene. There are some cases that we're even now finding out. I mean, there are some audits that are coming that are showing new things that we didn't even know about. In all the work that the oral committee did, it flagged 32 cases. And out of those 32 cases, the processes have gone on. The minister has the statistics. Investigations are advanced. Some are in court. Others are being prepared. The dockets are being prepared to be taken to court. But even outside the 32 cases, there are new cases that crop up that we didn't know about or even didn't envisage. And so the way to go is with the constraints of the investigative bodies and the Attorney General's department. We are exploring the possibility of finding some private legal firms to help in docket building and building the cases so that we can send them to court. But once it gets to the court, we don't have control over the courts. The law must take its course, and as I said, justice is in the bosom of the judge, and they will determine eventually whether a person is guilty or not. I cannot comment on the extradition of our former finance minister because it's in a different jurisdiction and I have no control of it. All I know is that Ghana has put in an extradition request, and so we just have to be patient for the laws to play out in that jurisdiction, and whatever the eventual decision is, we cannot change it, because it's not within our jurisdiction. And so we just have to be patient and see what happens. But I know there are two parallel issues. One is the extradition request by Ghana, and the other one is the immigration issue. The arrest was made by ICE for violating immigration status. But then also there's the additional issue of the extradition. But like I said, it's all in the hands of the American judiciary, and it's not within our effort to influence that. And so let's just leave it and see what comes out of it. But let me thank you very much. That was the last question. Let me thank you very much for coming. Like I said, this will not be the last. It will be something that we do annually. But aside from that, if issues come up for which we need to confer with civil society, we'll be very happy to invite you. Maybe not all together, but those of you who are active in a particular sector, we can invite you to come and think through with us and see what direction policy should take. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. His Excellency has also given the closing remarks. I was going to call upon him to do so, but he has preempted it. So at this juncture, I wish to thank all of you for honoring our invitation and making the interaction so lively and beneficial. I trust that another opportunity will present itself for similar engagement going forward. And the outstanding matters that could not be addressed today would be duly dealt with. But in the meantime, the doors of government continues to be open. If you have any lingering questions, you can reach out to any of the sector ministers who have jurisdiction over the matter. The presidency itself is also open to such engagement. On a daily basis, we get questions and other inquiries from a cross-section of Ghanaians, and therefore the interaction will not end here. We will continue to engage at close quarters. Thank you all for coming. At this stage, we will take the national anthem, after which His Excellency, the President and the Vice President will depart. Thank you very much.
mafuti sam kakre wa supreme.